Hi, my name is Michael Cheney. I made two ethical decisions in my life that I've merit. One is that I decided that God is whoever God chooses to be. Why this is interesting is because there are 10 to the 45 possible quantum states in the brain of a person, 10 to the 90 in their body. What is it? There are more quantum states in the brain, and we use most of those, but there are more quantum states in the body total than there are in the brain as a mass, and there's more quantum states in the universe than there are in the body and the brain. So by deciding that God is who God chooses to be, and that my choices expand to the same level that God does, this has merit because it's not me becoming God, it's me letting God do what he wants with my choices. There's only a finite amount of information density that you can fit into 10 to the 45 quantum states. Only some percentage of it can be used. Choices or time spans. The quantum gravity could probably make something. And when you consider that sterile neutrinos can actually survive big bangs and thus become a structure to which you can build big bangs out of, it becomes very interesting because choices as a time span from being only observed in one direction of time mean that when God created the universe, he did so through making space and everything in it out of thermodynamics, and choices are thermodynamic, each with a hot side and a cold side. So two properties acted on by one being, and each of those properties implies a thought, because how the interference from the hot side can interfere with the cold side, and how the cold side can interfere with the hot side of choices. And so allowing God to have his choice allows me to build subtlety of choice that otherwise wouldn't exist. The second ethical decision I made was regarding marriage, that I would only marry the lady who is my exact equal equivalent, because the amount of force that a person exerts on the universe has to do with time, space, and mass. Consciousness interacts with space and therefore interacts with mass. Choice interacts with time and therefore interacts with space and mass. So mass is kind of one of the things that's acted on either way. And so force is exerted, either through loop quantum gravity or differences in topology due to how my consciousness expands or contracts. And that can build subtlety, having more effect, doing more with less. Because the smallest acts of power are the greatest. Big acts of power like blowing up buildings, or terrorizing society, or even governing a society. Those are big acts of power, but they're not very subtle, and so their effectiveness is degraded. They make small policy decisions, but in the end, it's their ethical and moral decisions that determine how far they'll go, and ultimately the upper limit of subtlety they can reach. I talked about vices a person can get into last video, and how those vices might be explored with more access to power, but it's the ethical decision to misuse something for your own enjoyment. That's really the problem. See, even in the Bible, before God made man, there was a tree of good and evil. That means God experienced evil even before mankind existed. Which means there are horrors that God faced, that caused God pain, that had nothing to do with the nature of people. That no matter what you do, there will always be pain. For example, the void, the dimension of temperature from which God created the universe, can infinitely vary in temperature to infinitely hot and infinitely cold. And that has consequences, because that means everyone will suffer, even whether or not they're around people or not. But it's the people who choose to face that horror, to face that evil, and to learn from it until it doesn't cause them pain anymore, and they're able to be a shield and a strength for others, even if others never know it. That is exerting force for a purpose, not against human evil, but against, or even the evil of the devil or the Satan or anyone like that, but to just face evil that comes from the void, which is essentially nothing moving and causing differences in temperature. And the more you face that evil, the more you can become more subtle, but at the same time you face things from the nature of space and from the nature of thermodynamics that cause your soul pain directly. Things so subtle that people might not even recognize why it exists, or where it comes from, or even what mechanics were involved that caused them pain. But they still take it out on each other. That's not what I choose to do. And so finding someone who exerts the exact same level of force as me on existence, on people, is something I can't do alone. But at the same time, whoever is my equal isn't just my equal because she recognizes herself as such, but because something more subtle than me, and more subtle than her, recognizes the infinite implications of each and every decision we've ever made, each and every thought we've ever had, each and every emotion, and all of its moral and ethical considerations. And decides to match us together. Me, I get the feeling she's already married someone else, and I'll just have to keep facing the horror until he dies, or I die, or someone with more power, more subtlety than me decides to marry me and then gets me killed, or someone with less marries me and I get them killed. Because I think that only marrying someone who's your exact equal, not precise, not accurate, just exact equal, I mean, whatever that marriage bond will be a source of life. And then even though it has caused me a lot of suffering that protects other people. Enjoy your day. Bye.